One evening, an arrogant samurai refused to pay for his services, thinking the old man was below his stature. The old man begged for the money, but the samurai thought him even more pathetic and weak, and took great joy in savagely beating him. "You pitiful creature," the samurai laughed. "Let me do you the favor of ending your worthless existence." So he drew his sword and cut off the old man's left hand. Then tossed a few dirty old coins on the ground, just out of reach. "I'm in a generous mood, old man," the samurai scoffed and walked away slowly. As he lay dying, the old blind man could hear a small bell the samurai had attached to his sash, the chime fading in the distance as he disappeared. With his last breath, the old man cursed his lot in life, praying to the gods for the gift of sight so he could seek revenge. But the old man's words were heard by a demon who granted his wish in a most unusual way. "I don't believe it," said a young man named Izo, laughing at his friend who recited the story. The two boys sat in front of an old, decrepit graveyard near the Kyoto Shichijo River. "It's true," the friend whispered. "It's rumored that his spirit lurks in this very graveyard, and at midnight, if you ring a bell, you'll summon him." He held out a small bell to Izo, as if daring him to do it. Izo hesitated, but not wanting to lose face, he snatched the bell. "I'm not afraid," he sneered. "Ghosts don't exist. You'll see." The friend watched as Izo walked defiantly through the crumbling gates, expecting him to turn back. But when Izo disappeared into the darkness, a chill swept over him, and his smile quickly dissipated. Izo made his way through the decaying graveyard. There was no moon out that night, and he could barely make out the headstones in front of him. He began to wonder what he had gotten himself into. He finally arrived at the back of the graveyard and held up the bell, unsure if it was wise to continue. But he knew if he didn't, his friend would tell everyone, and he'd never live it down. With every ounce of courage, he rang the bell. He waited with bated breath. Nothing moved. The only sound was the escalating heartbeat thumping in his chest. Several minutes passed. "I knew it," he scoffed. "It's all nonsense." As he turned to leave, there was a rustling in a bush. Squinting in the darkness, he could make out a silhouette emerging. Startled, Izo stood on guard. "Who is that?" he shouted. As the figure stepped forward, Izo saw it was an old man with long, white hair. He was tall, lanky, and skeletal. He looked 100 years old, drooping wrinkles causing his face to sag as if it were melting. The old man opened his mouth, revealing rotten teeth set in swollen black gums. Izo gasped when he noticed the old man had no eyes, only black endless voids where his socket should be. Who is is there? The old man croaked. No, it can't be, Izo stammered, noticing the old man was missing his left hand, his wrist a ragged stump. He dropped the bell and ran away with a shriek, hiding behind a tombstone. The old man tilted his head, a soft moan escaping his throat. He held out his left hand and unfurled his long, conic fingers, revealing a bloodshot eyeball, rimmed with mucus, embedded in his palm. The eye rolled and darted in all directions. The old man smiled. I can see, he wheezed. Izo trembled as the old man's footsteps shuffled closer. Every second felt like an eternity as Izo bit his lower lip and tried not to make a sound. The old man's hand stretched past the edge of the tombstone and turned in Izo's direction, the eyeball looking him up and down. I see you, came the old man's whisper. Izo was frozen in fear as something tugged his shoulder. He turned to see the old man's severed hand crawling towards his neck like a spider. It clutched his throat and squeezed. He bolted up, gasping as he pulled the hand off and threw it to the ground. He ran without looking back as the old man cackled. Izo's lungs burned as he raced through the graveyard, looking for the exit. But soon he was lost and disoriented. He came upon the gates of a nearby temple and banged on the door. Help! Open up, please! He pleaded. Is anyone there? Let me in! But no one answered. Someone help me! Let me in! Please! Help me! Someone! Anyone! I'm begging you! Please open the door! Panicking, he scanned the graveyard as a low moan drifted through the air. He was unsure if the shadows moving among the tombstones were the old man approaching, or his mind playing tricks on him. Finally, a sleepy monk opened the door. I'm being chased by a monster, Izo pleaded. Let me hide in here, please. The monk could see the terror in the young man's eyes, and the sound of footsteps approached. Izo burst through the door. Help! There's something chasing me! You have to save me! Please, I don't want to die! The monk took him to an ornate wooden chest and told him to get in. He fastened the lid and scrambled to find a hiding place of his own as the footsteps shuffled closer. The monk cowered under a platform as the old man lumbered past him. Where are you? Come out. Let me see you. The old man shambled away and the monk sighed in relief, but gasped when the severed hand scuttled past him and followed the old man. The monk covered his mouth, waiting in unbearable silence. Suddenly, there were strange sounds, gagging and retching, cracking, snaps and pops, slurping and licking, voracious and ravenous. The sounds were so disgusting, the monk threw up. He covered his ears and closed his eyes, praying that it would all go away like a bad dream. The monk woke up to the sound of birds singing in the distance. It was still dark, but morning was near. He crawled out from under the platform and looked around. was nowhere to be seen. He ran to the wooden chest and began to unlock the lid.
Boy, it's over. The monster is gone.
But when the monk opened the lid, he screamed and passed out. Inside the chest was Izo's body, floating in a gelatinous pool of blood and viscera that oozed from every orifice. Somehow his bones had been completely removed, and all that remained was a sack of squishy, quivering flesh.